I went from private to sergeant.
Where did you serve?
Served in Korea and China.
Were you drafted or did you enlist in the Marine Corps?
I enlisted.
Where were you living at the time when you enlisted?
Hartford, Connecticut.
Where were you living at the time? Were you living in Hartford then, when you enlisted?
Oh.
You were living in Hartford, right?
I lived in Hartford and trying to think of the name of the street. I went into, goes right into Main Street.
Okay, Clarence.
Behind, matter of fact, behind the house was a Colts Park.
Okay, I know where that is. Why did you join?
Pardon?
Why did you join, Clarence?
Well, my father and mother were both aliens. My father got killed in an accident. He just arrived in the United States not too long before this. And my mother had to work jobs that didn't call for citizenship. So I told her I was going to join the service. So I went down to Hartford, and at the time it was post office. You went in there, told them who you were, where you're from, where you're born, and everything. And they either signed you up or they didn't. So they signed me up. They told me I had about 5 days. Go home and talk to your mother, talk to whoever else you knew, friends and relations, and report back here. So I reported down there, and they shipped me to Paris Island, South Carolina. And I was there for a while. Then they decided to send me to California.
What was Paris Island like?
Huh?
Let's stop for a second. What was your basic turning, your first days in the service like? When you first started in the Marine Corps, what was it like in basic training?
I'm sorry.
What was it like in basic training when you first arrived in the Marine Corps?
Well, I was a recruiting depot, the first training was Paris Island, and then from Paris Island they sent me to Camp Pendleton, California. And after California, they sent me to Mares Island, and Mares Island was very crowded. They operated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Matter of fact, everybody even ate standing up. They figured everybody by 100 lots, and you didn't take anything you didn't eat. And so they kept me there for a short period of time, like everybody else. And then all of a sudden they said, you're going to be assigned, there's ships in the harbor, APAs, transport ships. They had a bunch going to the Pacific. But when they got partway out there, they stopped. To me, it was the middle of the ocean. And what they did is they decided whoever was in charge, one group went one place and one group went another. Well, my group went to China. And first big place we hit in China was we went up the Yangtze River, and we were in Shanghai, and I was there for 3 days, I think it was. And after the 3 days, they decided it was time to go. So we went out to the ocean, down the Yangtze, and we went up to Tsingtao, China, and that's where we landed. We went ashore there, and we lived on the docks the first 24 hours. There was a party went out to find us living quarters. And what it was, they said that we could go to the Shentun University. And of course, to me, it didn't mean anything. But the Shentun University was occupied by several people, and they lived there. And the Japanese had been there before us, and we stayed there for approximately 4 or 5 months. And then we got assigned to Tientsin proper, Qinghuantao proper. And what happened is I never seen down at the docks and shipyard and all that stuff. What it was, the fleet used to pull in there, 7 parts of the 7th Fleet. And they let the sailors go ashore during the daylight. They'd send us down there like guides. We'd go down there and walk around town and show them. Like I never seen a glass building until I was there. That's the first glass building I ever seen. And they had a glass building on the docks. And of course, again, everything was owned not by Chinese, but by Europeans. Europeans owned everything. They were in charge of everything. And the Russians, being on top of the world, there was a lot of Russians in China. All kinds of Russians. Everything from a laborer to a doctor. And it was unbeknown to me that it was like that. And what it was is, a lot of them, they came from Russia purposely. There was no border guard, so they just walked through the country and into the country. And they picked out Qinghuantao, or picked out Peking or Tientsin, or one of the cities they figured they could work in, get a job in. And that's what they did. Those people were knowing everything. A lot of them had been there for years. I didn't realize it. We were all newcomers. We just arrived. But a lot of those people had been there for a good many years. Oh, yeah.
What was your job in the Marine Corps?
Pardon?
Were you an infantryman or in the Marine Corps? What did you do?
What was I familiar with? The Japanese barracks that there at Qinghuantao, they had taken it over, the high command, and we were there for a period of time. Then they started splitting us up, going in different areas, and we were going to go north, and the next big city up going north was Tientsin. And Tientsin was another place that had a liberal government that was made up of people from China, Russia. There's no Americans, no Americans at all. And we stayed there for a short time. We did guard duty there, and we got to know roughly the area. And after that, they said you got to go to Peking. So I had never been there before either. So what had happened, as I said before, the Navy offered, the Navy doesn't sleep on mattresses. They sleep on little pads. So what they had is, they had some kind of a deal down at Taku Bar to get a bunch of pads. A couple of thousand of them. And the Navy shipped them ashore. And they put them on a train and they shipped them up to Tinson. From Tinson, we had to unload the train and put them on trucks. We were going to put them on 6x and take them to Peking. And what happened was, on the way up there, we got hit by irregulars. Some said they were Chinese, and some said they were Russian, some said they were different people. We didn't even know who it was. So what it was, unbeknown to me, every day there was a Corsair used to leave Peking, a volunteer. And he'd go down as far as he thinks the fuel would carry him, survey the area, take pictures, look over the villages and stuff, and come back. He didn't get shot down. So what happened is he flew over when there was a firefight. So he signaled he was coming down. So what happened was that he got down and he pointed to the wing. He opened the cockpit. I jumped up in the wing and I hung onto the cockpit. He taxied out through the village till he got the train stopped. And they were surprised to see him. And he put me aboard the train, the engine, and I went to Peking with no problem at all. And in Peking, they let me off. And in Peking, I had to find the Marine detachment. And the people, some spoke English, some didn't speak English at all. And they guided me to where the Marines were stationed. And there was about 300 or 400 of them altogether.
But you were wounded here, right?
At Peking.
You had been hit by, in that convoy, you had been hit by those irregulars, right? You were wounded when that pilot picked you up? Were you wounded?
I'm sorry,
Were you wounded? You were wounded, right?
No, I wasn't wounded then.
No, okay, all right.
Oh,
Okay,
I wasn't wounded then.
okay.
Later on, we used to go on patrol. We go on foot. And we go out, follow the Great Wall. The Great Wall comes right up into Peking itself. So the wall was built over 800 miles long. So we'd go down the wall and we'd stop at what they call the gatehouses. And we'd time it and we'd come back. And each day they'd send us, we'd go a little further, a little further. And I went out and we got hit by irregulars again. And the only thing to do was shoot back and head back to Peking, try to get back to our outfit and everything up there. So that's what we did. We were there for probably about 6 months altogether, from the beginning to the end. And what had happened, a lot of the guys were sent to different places. It was like a rotating system. They got sent to parts of the Pacific. And the unit kept getting smaller. So when I got about 300 men, they decided to move us out of there. And they were going to move us south. So we ended up in Tinson, and we stayed there. Well, then they put us on flying boats. They transport us to Hong Kong. Hong Kong, the mainland was owned by the British. The harbor was owned by the Portuguese and Spaniards. And we got off the planes, and finally they put us on ships. They sent us back here.
What was the most interesting thing?
Pardon?
What was the most interesting thing that you saw or experienced in China?
Where was I?
No, what was the most interesting thing that you remember about
Oh.
China, or your comrades, or your fellow soldiers?
At the time, Korea was free. Korea wasn't a two countries. They shipped us over there. They shipped me to a seaplane landing. I stayed there. The rest of the guys went into the city, and they actually fought to get the city under an Allied American name. And
What city was that?
pardon?
What city was that? Can you remember the place?
I'm trying to think.
That's okay. That's all right. Okay. Then what kind of
What,
in Korea? What did you do?
yeah,
Do you know what year it was you
what's
moved
the
to?
main city?
That's Seoul.
Well,
Seoul, Korea? Seoul.
we were outside the city of Seoul when they moved us towards Seoul, moved us in to Seoul. And they were fighting in the streets for security. They wanted security. They wanted a clean city. So that's what they did. And later, after I had left, that's when Korea went to two powers. There was people, I met people in Seoul that were from the north. They were in the south looking for work, looking for, that was before it was divided into two countries. A lot of the people were off the farms, off the land,
Mm-hmm.
did minor jobs. None of them had specialties. We were the people that had the specialties. So some of them, they hired some of them to do menial jobs for us. Some worked in the kitchens, some helped clean up the streets. They had them doing all kinds of odd jobs. That's the way it was when I left there.
Where did you leave to?
But,
Where did you go after leaving Korea?
sent me to, well, like I said, sent it back to Hong Kong. And I stayed down there for about 3 or 4 weeks. And then from there, they decided to send me back to the United States. And then I was shipped to San Diego, California. And I was at Naval Headquarters for about a month. And from there, they shipped me up to Camp Pendleton. And I stayed there until they transferred me back east. I went to Norfolk, Virginia. Norfolk, Virginia, they gave me a color job. In other words, every day we'd raise a color before the American flag. We'd raise one of our allies. The last flag we raised is always the American flag. And the hardest thing it was is the band had to learn a verse of the national anthem of all these different countries. And that was it.
Okay. Now, Clarence, you were injured in combat somewhere, right?
Yeah, I was.
Where was that? Where did that happen?
Korea.
In Korea.
That happened the knee happened in Korea. Hip happened in Korea. The right leg happened in Korea.
What happened to the right leg?
What?
The bullet in your right leg, right? Was it a bullet in your right leg? What happened to your right leg?
There was a bullet in the right leg. They finally took that out. There's still shrapnel in the right hip, and they took the bullet out of the left leg.
So you were wounded 3 times?
Pardon?
You were wounded 3 times? You were wounded 3 times?
Yeah.
In Korea. Was that all happen at once?
One area.
One area?
Yeah.
Were you were on patrol, or what was going on?
Yeah.
And that was the North Koreans attacking?
Actually, it was in the South Korea.
Okay. All right. Okay, you left the Marine Corps in 1967 after 19 years and 7 months.
Yeah,
right?
I was in Norfolk, Virginia when I left.
Mm-hmm.
I was in color detail.
Yes.
That's the job I had.
Right. Yeah. Did you make any good friendships in the Marine Corps?
Pardon?
Did you make any good friendships in the Marine Corps?
At the end, before I got shipped home from Korea, some guy says, make sure he has a copy. What had happened is during the war, they would take people out of boot camp and send them different places to different jobs. And the guy his name was Saharko. He spoke several languages fluently. And I didn't know that he went to Texas. And all the interpreters were in Texas. And they shipped them all over the world, regardless of service. They served Army, Navy, Marine Corps, whatever. Didn't make no difference. And I looked up, and this guy was a light colonel. Same guy that was a private. Now he was a light colonel. He wanted to make sure that I get sent back to get taken care of. Oh yeah, Saharko was his name. I didn't know where he went, all the places he was at, all the things he did. I didn't know.
Okay. What type of medals and ribbons did you get in the Marine Corps? You got a Purple Heart. You got a Korean Service
Well, of course
medal.
I got Purple Heart, Good Conduct, Asiatic Pacific, China, Korea,
When you got out of the Marine Corps, what did you do when you got out of the Marine Corps, when you left the Marine
what's
Corps?
that?
What did you do when you left the Marine Corps? When you left the Marine Corps, what did you do?
Oh, I came to Hartford, and I went to work for. I went to work for the state during the day. I worked for Coca-Cola at night.
What'd you
I
do?
worked 2 jobs. I worked in maintenance in the state, and they sent me to Bradley Field. And what it was, at the time, Bradley had belonged to the Air Force. And of course it got its name from a man that was killed there, Bradley. They had us doing a lot of work around. Part of Bradley at that time was in Windsor Locks. We had to go there and do work. We had to work at the airport, do different things.
Did you ever go back to school using the GI Bill?
No, what happened is I got married. And the girl I married, we had 2 children. And she's gone now, passed on. The 2 children, one is in Florida, St. Lucian's. The other one lives in Middletown,
Okay.
Connecticut.
How did the military experience, the being in China and Korea, how did that affect your attitude toward war, basically? No.
Well, I think comes on the TV. I can see they did everything different than what we did, and I think a lot of it is. Well, it's not changed that much that I just dropped the whole subject. I don't get involved in arguing over the military because it's a different time, it's a different people, it's altogether different regulations. They don't have to go places like I had to go.
Did you join any veterans organizations like the VFW or anything like that?
No, I never did.
Oh, we've almost come to the end, Clarence. Is there anything else you want to say?
No.
We're very proud that you served. We're very happy and proud that you served and that we could do this interview. And is there anything
I
else?
did my time, and I went to the Pacific over to China. The people, matter of fact, the people I know are passed on. A lot of them are not even alive today. And even the people are gone. It's not the same people anymore. It's all different people.
Yeah.
So I don't even talk about this subject because a lot of people like to argue over today and then. It was a different time.
Well, thank you, Clarence, for the interview, and I'm glad you shared that with us. And